Let's start with today's major headline out of Washington. Former President Donald Trump has launched a direct attack on the Smithsonian Institution, America's largest and most respected museum network. According to Trump, these museums have become far too focused on slavery, racism, and the darker chapters of American history, while ignoring the nation's achievements, innovation, and progress. Trump argues that this so-called woke agenda creates a distorted view of the past, one that teaches younger generations to be ashamed of their own country instead of being proud of it. He insists that the Smithsonian's exhibitions now portray the United States as fundamentally flawed and broken, rather than a land of opportunity and resilience. In response, Trump has ordered a sweeping review of 7 major Smithsonian museums. This review will examine funding, programs, and exhibits to determine whether taxpayer dollars should continue supporting what he describes as anti-American narratives. The move has sparked sharp debate across Washington, with Republicans welcoming the decision, while Democrats and historians accuse Trump of trying to rewrite history. Supporters of Trump say the Smithsonian must present a balanced story, one that includes America's struggles, but also its triumphs, inventions, and courage. Critics, however, warn that downplaying slavery or racial injustice is dangerous because these are undeniable truths that shaped the nation. They argue that Trump is attempting to sanitize history for political gain. What's clear is that this isn't just about museums. It's about culture, politics, and the future of how America tells its story. For Trump's allies, this fight is about restoring national pride. For his opponents, it's about protecting historical truth. Either way, this latest battle could influence the 2026 elections as Trump continues to rally his base around the idea that Washington elites have stolen America's identity and that he alone can bring it back. The controversy surrounding Trump's order is growing rapidly. At the heart of the debate lies a fundamental question: how should America remember its past? For Trump, the Smithsonian has become a symbol of what he calls a left-wing cultural takeover, where institutions push a narrative that emphasizes guilt and grievance rather than pride and progress. This message resonates strongly with his political base. Many of Trump's supporters believe that mainstream institutions, from universities to the media, have embraced a worldview that undermines traditional American values. By targeting the Smithsonian, Trump is not only addressing history, but also reinforcing his campaign promise to take back America from what he calls radical elites. Republican lawmakers have already voiced their backing. They argue that taxpayer-funded museums should not be in the business of indoctrinating children with shame. Some have even suggested redirecting Smithsonian funds toward programs that celebrate entrepreneurship, military strength, and American exceptionalism. On conservative media outlets, commentators are praising Trump for having the courage to challenge what they describe as a biased narrative that has gone unchecked for decades. But opposition is fierce. Democratic leaders say Trump is attempting to whitewash history, comparing his actions to authoritarian regimes that censor the past to suit political agendas. Prominent historians have warned that ignoring the legacy of slavery, segregation, and systemic racism risks creating an incomplete and misleading understanding of the nation's development. You cannot tell America's story without confronting these hard truths, one scholar argued in response to Trump's plan. Civil rights groups are also alarmed. They view the review as an attempt to silence marginalized voices and erase the painful experiences of millions of African Americans. For them, the Smithsonian represents not just artifacts and exhibits, but a platform where suppressed histories finally find acknowledgement. Altering that mission, they say, would amount to erasing the progress made in the struggle for racial equality. The White House, however, has doubled down. Officials claim that the review is not about censorship, but about restoring balance. A senior aide stated, "We're not erasing history. We're making sure that history reflects the greatness of this country, not just its sins." This framing, balancing criticism with celebration, is at the core of Trump's messaging. It's designed to appeal to voters who feel exhausted by years of cultural conflict and who long for a more positive vision of America. The stakes could not be higher. With the 2026 midterm elections approaching, Trump's push against the Smithsonian is more than a cultural skirmish. It's a political weapon. By casting himself as the defender of America's honor, he hopes to rally conservative voters in battleground states where cultural issues often drive turnout. For Democrats, the challenge will be convincing voters that acknowledging America's darker history is not about tearing the country down, but about building a more honest and inclusive future. As the debate intensifies, the Smithsonian controversy has quickly become more than just a cultural discussion. It's evolving into a defining political flashpoint. For Trump, this battle perfectly fits into his larger narrative that America's institutions have been captured by elites who are out of touch with ordinary citizens. By confronting the Smithsonian, he is positioning himself as the only leader willing to challenge what he calls the establishment's control of history. In political strategy terms, it's a masterstroke. Museums might seem like an unlikely battlefield, but they are symbolic. They shape how young people see their country, how immigrants understand American identity, and how the world perceives the United States. By declaring war on what he labels woke history, Trump isn't just fighting over exhibits. He's staking a claim on America's soul. Republicans are already using the issue on the campaign trail. At rallies, speakers echo Trump's lines, "Our children deserve to learn about America's greatness, not just its guilt." This framing has the potential to energize conservative voters, particularly in suburban and rural areas where cultural issues often resonate more strongly than economic statistics. For many, the Smithsonian fight represents a broader struggle against what they see as left-wing dominance in schools, media, and entertainment. But Democrats are equally determined to push back. They frame Trump's order as an attack on truth itself. "This isn't about balance, it's about erasure," one Democratic senator declared. Liberal commentators argue that Trump's demand for patriotic history is nothing more than propaganda. They point to past attempts by authoritarian leaders around the world to reshape education and culture in their own image, warning that America must not follow that path. Meanwhile, the Smithsonian leadership finds itself in a precarious position. Publicly, the institution insists it will cooperate with the review, but privately, curators and staff are expressing concern. Many fear political interference could compromise the independence of their work. Some have even suggested that if funding is threatened, exhibits could be dramatically altered, creating long-term consequences for the preservation of history. The public reaction is sharply divided. In conservative circles, Trump's approval rating has surged following the announcement, with many calling him the only politician willing to stand up for America. On the other hand, progressive activists are organizing protests, arguing that history must include every voice, not just the triumphant ones. Social media is flooded with heated exchanges, memes, and hashtags like Defend History and Save the Smithsonian, reflecting just how polarizing this issue has become. What makes this fight especially significant is its timing. With the midterm elections drawing near, every cultural clash becomes amplified. Trump and his team understand that emotional issues often drive voter turnout far more than policy debates. By highlighting the Smithsonian, they are sparking emotions of pride, anger, fear, and nostalgia, powerful motivators that could influence millions of ballots. Ultimately, the Smithsonian controversy is not just about exhibits, slavery, or funding. It's about competing visions of America. One side insists that acknowledging the painful past is essential for building an honest and inclusive nation. The other argues that focusing too much on that pain undermines pride and unity. In the middle stands the American voter, who will decide not just which version of history to believe, but also which political future to embrace. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is clear. The Smithsonian fight is not an isolated event. It represents a broader cultural war that is shaping the future of American politics. For Trump and his allies, this is the perfect stage to reinforce their message that America is under attack not from foreign enemies, but from within its own institutions. The question now is, will this message resonate with the wider public, or will it backfire by appearing too extreme? History tells us that cultural battles are never just about statues, museums, or textbooks. They are about identity. They are about who gets to decide what it truly means to be American. This is why the Smithsonian controversy matters so deeply. It's not just about the past, It's about the future. If Trump succeeds in reshaping the narrative, it could influence generations of Americans. If his opponents manage to resist, they will argue that they've protected truth from political interference. Either way, the outcome will have lasting consequences. And as voters head toward the next election cycle, this battle over history might prove just as decisive as debates over the economy, healthcare, or foreign policy. Because in the end, people don't just vote with their wallets. They also vote with their hearts, their values, and their vision of what America should stand for. So as we watch this drama play out, the Smithsonian is no longer just a museum. It has become a battlefield in America's cultural and political war, a war that will define the nation's future.